Professor S. Rai is Head Department of Geography, Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. He has been serving the department as professor since 2014 and is well known for his excellency in academics and administrative career. Professor Rai has dozens of publications in well-known national and international journals of repute. He has been awarded with Lifetime Achievement Award 2019 and Professor Bandaru Hema Malini Eminent Geographers Award 2013 by National Association of Geographers India at Madras University, Chennai. Professor Rai is associated with various professional bodies. He is elected as Vice President, the Asian Geographical Association, Beijing, China. We are pleased to have such an eminent personality amongst us this afternoon in this panel discussion. I request Professor D.D. Sharma, President, Geographical Society of Himachal Pradesh and Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sardar Patel University, to honor our Chair, Professor S. Rai. We have 5 panelists in this panel discussion. So I am going to call upon Professor M.S. Jaglan. Sir, I request Professor M.S. Jaglan to take his seat. I feel honored to introduce among you Professor M.S. Jaglan, an intellectual of enormous distinction and repute, who served the Department of Geography, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra, for more than 2 decades. Professor Jaglan did his Master's, MPhil and PhD from CSRD, JNU. His teaching and research experience spans over 25 years. His areas of specialization are agricultural geography, social geography, and environmental geography. He has supervised 13 PhD students, including me, and 30 MPhil have been accomplished under his capable mentorship. I feel proud to have his students. Whatever I am today, whatever I have achieved in my life, particularly in the field of research, its sole credit goes to my teacher, Professor M.S. Jaglan. Today I feel proud to honor Professor M.S. Jaglan with Himachali Crown, cap and memento. Now I request Professor Ashwini Luthra to take his seat on the dais. Professor Ashwini Luthra is a noted educationist. He is professor at Guru Ramdas School of Planning, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, Punjab. He is a fellow member of Institute of Town Planners, India, and also closely associated with Institute for Spatial Planning and Environment Research, Panchkula. He has specialization in the field of urban and regional planning with a background of economics. His core areas of interest are sustainability concerns, urban challenges, and transportation planning in the urban areas of India. He has more than 30 years experience in teaching and research. He has guided 6 PhD students and 84 PG level projects. Professor Luthra has edited 1 book and published 264 research papers in books, journals, and conferences of international and national repute. Professor Luthra has delivered many invited talks at various national and international conferences. Now I request Professor Hemraj Rana, Vice President, GSHP, to honor Professor Luthra with Himachali shawl, cap, and memento.
मौसम को देखते हुए आई एम ऑल्सो थैंकफुल दैट जो किताब की बात की वो मेरा भी उसमें एक चैप्टर है.
Now I going to call upon Professor Amit Dorde. Sir, I request you to take your seat on the dais. Professor Amit Dorde, a renowned academician, is a professor in the Department of Geography, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. He has 21 years of experience in teaching and research at postgraduate level. Professor Dorde has completed doctorate with climatology as specialization. His areas of research interest are climate variability, urban climate, and application of geoinformatics for determining environmental change and assessment of natural hazards such as drought. Professor Dhorde has completed PG diploma in natural hazards and disaster risk management with specialization in geoinformation from IRS Dehradun. He has guided 4 PhD, authored 1 book and 2 book chapters, and 34 articles have been published in national and international journals of his repute. I request Dr. Rajan Bhandari, Life Member, Geographical Society of Himachal Pradesh, to honor Professor Dhorde with Himachali cap, shawl, and memento. Now I request Professor Anuja Tiga amongst us to take her seat on the dais. Professor Anuja Tiga is professor and chairperson in the Department of Geography, Andhra University, Visakhapatnam. He has teaching and research experience of more than 2 decades. His areas of research interest are applied climatology, applications of remote sensing and GIS, regional development and planning. She has guided 3 PhD and 1 MPhil student. Professor Tiga has also completed 2 major research projects. She has contributed 33 research papers to the academic community. She has also attended 33 national and international conferences and seminars, and also delivered invited talks at different platforms. Now I request Viva Saraswati, Life Member, Geographical Society of Himachal Pradesh, to honor Professor Anuja Tiga with Himachali shawl, cap, and memento. Now the last but not least speaker who has joined us from Banaras Hindu University online, Professor Sarfraz Alam. Professor Sarfraz Alam is a professor at Department of Geography, Banaras Hindu University. He is also an adjunct faculty at the Center for Bhojpuri Studies, Faculty of Arts of the same university. His areas of interest include social geography, political geography, and history of geography in India. His recent work is on the evolution of geography in South Asia. Presently, he is the editor of Rashtriya Bhogolik Patrika, a biannual journal of geography published by NGSI Varanasi. He has also worked at the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, New Delhi, and JP University, Chhapra, and IGNOU, New Delhi. He writes poems in Hindustani and he has also authored a book, Nakshanama, which is under press. Sir, we extend digital greetings and digital felicitation to you, sir, from Shimla. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now over to Chair Professor S. Rai for further proceedings. Sir. Professor S. Rai, sir, over to you, sir. You can use this, sir. Okay, sir. Right.
Respected panelists on the dais, eminent Professor Jaglan sir, Professor Luthra Sahab, Professor Amit Dorte and Anuja Tigga, and senior professors of the dais, Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor D.D. Sharma, Senior Professor Kausal Sharma from JNU, Mrs. Jaglan from Kurukshetra, and other professors. This is a very important session in this conference, in two-day conference. And the inaugural session, keynote speaker, as well as organizing secretary B.R. Thakur has already given some focus on the topic, geography, development, and public policy. It's a very pertinent and very important topic, and I hope that the panelists will do the justice in the topic, because some light has already thrown by the keynote speaker. We are celebrating Bharat Ka Amrit Mahotsav, or in 75 years, the geography has not recognized by the government. We are not in social science, we are not considered in science. We are moving social science and science discipline. Nobody is recognizing geographers' work. So now the time is come, and the 21st century is for the geographers. And in end, I will give some thought of my work. So now I'm going to start. I request the Professor M.S. Jaglan sir. He's a very senior professor, and his specialization in agriculture. So please give your views.
नहीं माइक
यहाँ से बोलने बैठ के बोलने की आदत कुछ कम है। हालांकि डिस्कशन में ये किया जा सकता है, आपकी सुझाव सही है, तो बहुत दूर तक लोग बैठे हुए हैं। गिवन द इलोंगेटेड शेप ऑफ द हॉल, आई थिंक थोड़ा सा डाइस पे आके बोलना ज़्यादा उचित होगा। Respected Professor S.C. Lai, going to preside this particular session. Professor Aswini Luthra, Professor Amit Dhode, Professor Anuja Tigga, and Professor Sarfraz, a dear friend from Banaras Hindu University, and all the dignitaries of the dais and all the delegates. Now, this is a very unique opportunity for all of us to have a gathering here, and this is an inaugural conference of this organization that has been formed by the dear friends and colleagues here, and I think it's going to go a long way. Why I'm saying this? Because the topic of discussion that has been selected for this particular conference is very, very important. You'll not find in many conferences in India such types of topic being, the focal point. The geography, development, and the public policy. I think this is something that has been discussed in various forms in a smaller manner or in various lectures, etc. But to focus on this issue is very important aspect. And particularly this comes from Himachal Pradesh, where geography plays such a vital role in the policy making and can play. If it's not playing, maybe Professor Rai is right that we have not been in the position to influence the policy gamut to a large extent. But still, I believe that if we can do a quality research and the research that relates to this society, to this environment, I think we will not be unheard. And this is my belief. So, with a very positive belief, I'm initiating this discussion. Although there are many parties, there are many discussions who are going to be there, and I wish that all of you also should come out with certain queries or, in fact, points on this. So, the geographer should be engaged in the fundamental debates, and that debate has been started by this organization, and I congratulate this for that. I also I'm also grateful to them for having me here as one of the discussants and one of the participants. For last 2 days, at least I've been attending some of the sessions. I think there has been a great debate that has been generated on various issues. So why geography, or what is the place of geography in this particular policy gamut, or the relation of the geography with environment or with the development? Now, as a geographer, we have a very unique position that we can contribute in the policy issues on the development, and the development issues relates to both environment as well as to the society and economy. To the environment, because Professor Rai has pointed out that we have not been placed in the science or the social sciences. But partly this is our also problem also, because we generally have had a kind of past where there has been physical versus human geography. Thank God it is no more discussed anywhere. But we are in integrating science, and being an integrating science, we have certain advantages and we have certain disadvantages also. Advantages is that, as I told you, that we can contribute from a gamut to the policy, from the environment, to the society, to the economy. But there is some problem with us also. That problem is that many of us, in fact, have not been able to reach to the level or a topical specialism where we are counted counted as a discipline that contributes into the policy gamut. Having said so, uh, how do the geographers contribute? Let us start with this. How do the geographers contribute to the decision making and the policy framing? There are three ways, in my opinion, through which the geographers can intervene in this particular field. This is through publications of the research papers, through the journals or the professional journals that we have. And then they are taken care of by the decision makers. Here, in fact, there have been very good papers, there have been very good researches that have been published by us. I don't think that we are second to none in this particular field. But why do the policy makers take the notice of this? In fact, there are many layers, there are many folds on this. I'll be touching that upon at a later stage. Then the productions of the research reports and the research projects. So these are something which are supposed to be more of applied form of research, and that are supposed to, in fact, the puzzle resolving kind of issues. It deals with that, and that should have a much more policy implication kind of issue. But then we have the sponsors, and I don't know. I think there are senior geographers sitting here. How much peer review
is done for the research work that is done through various projects. Because that is necessary, because in that there is a public money that is also going from many funding agencies. Forget about what worth it is, but how much of this is in fact is peer reviewed. There are limitations on this, in fact, on the part of the sponsors also. And then the geographers becoming the part of the decision making process through direct participations. Now we know that there are some geographers who have been contributed, they have contributed on various committees, they have been directly contributing to the policy decision making processes. But many of their recommendations, in fact, are unknown. We don't know what exactly has been their contributions. Because most of these, when it comes in the policy framework, then it comes in the form of confidential, and that confidentiality is maintained. What I'm trying to say is that if we have a committee and it has a recommendations, and if this committee has the opinion or recommendations from the people coming from different disciplines, why it should not be made public? That confidentiality issue, in fact, lies with the implementers or the people who accept it. So, what I'm trying to say is that it's not that it's the problem with academicians, and this problem is with many other academicians also. Don't think that it is only with the geographers, that how much they are heard about this. Now, yesterday there was a reference that came, in fact, Professor K.K. Sharma in his keynote address made a reference of, may I know how much time I have, sir?
I think, sir, 20 minutes each, or 15 to 20 minutes
Okay, thank you.
each, so that cross discussion and participation.
Okay. So there was a reference that was cited, and this was a article by David Harvey. And the title of the article is "What Kind of Geography and What Kind of Public Policy?" Our recommendations should be accepted by the governments, but don't think that every recommendation of that will be accepted. Because the government has its own policies, the government is run by the parties which have their own politics. So, if you believe that everybody will take your suggestions, it will not be seen. In this particular article that was in Transactions of Institute of British Geographers in 1974, David Harvey says that this question be asked by the geographers to themselves before they recommend the public policies. That what kind of research that they are doing in geography, and then what kind of policies that they want to be implemented for the public welfare. Because he says that the geographer, in fact, decide when does she has the benefits for the society, whether whatever their recommendations are going to benefit to the society or going to benefit to those who are running your economic systems. And he clearly says that the corporate education is seen purely as a investment in the manpower. The education that the policies through policies and all those that is being pursued, that basic purpose is to create manpower. And the basic purpose basically is not the corporate education and academic research are means, as in a way they are in fact are tools for furthering the interest of the corporate class. Now Harvey is saying this in 1974 with respect to the conditions in the Europe or in Western countries. But we are also dealing with the similar situation as far as the social research is concerned in India today. Now for last 30 years or so, the development model that we have is a corporate development model. And in the corporate development model, you have to decide that for whom you are going to recommend the policies. Is it for the national issue? Is it for the peoples? Or is it for the corporates? Because that question is not generally asked by us as the geographers. Because geographers in a way have distanced themselves to the politics or the policy issues at a very broader level. So you have to keep in mind that the policies in fact themselves are not valuable, and they have to be taken with a pinch of the salt, and the geographers themselves have to decide that what value system they are going to adhere to while they are recommending the policies. Now there is another uh, there is another paper by G.L. Clark, who has written the instrumental reasons and the policy analysis. And this says that the geographic research in the applied geography cannot be value free. Now, I think he's particularly talking about the human geography. That can there be a research, can there be findings or a perspective, something that does not have a perspective. And if you don't have those perspectives, if you don't have that value, so that perspective, in fact, has to be decided by us, and geographers can offer the prescriptions to the geographers who want to contribute to the policy making only through certain parameters. Firstly, recognize the own value, which is tackling the problems and formulating the solutions. So, where do you stand yourself while you are making the prescriptions or you are giving the solutions to the problems? Secondly, to promote a particular case rather than promoting the independent or objectivity. Now, this is true even for the researches that you do in the physical geography. When your policy prescription is, or the policy prescription that you are giving, you have to also keep in mind that whether the society at large is going to be benefited by this, or which particular sections of the society is going to be benefited by this, or is it going to help the kind of the corporate models that exist, or will it be touching the peoples directly? And then the policy scientists should be critique and should question the status quo. Now that is very important thing. Should we provide the policy prescriptions which are for the change of the society, or are they going to maintain the status quo? Now, these could be value-related questions to many of us, but till the time the geographers, in fact, deal with all these issues, we are not going to be in the position, or we are not going to be competent in the position that we can push our work, that should be the part of the policy network. Then there is one article by Martin R.L., Geography and Public Policy, a case of missing agenda. And this says that contemporary research in the social and economic geography, in fact, it concerns with that mostly. And it says it has little policy relevance. So that brings up to the questions today also, that how much research that we are going or we are doing now has a policy relevance. If when we are conscious about our being relevant, then we should also keep in mind while we are designing the research work, where we are selecting the research work, that how much relevance it has to the society. Because there can be a research which could be in the basic issues which may not be directly relevant to society. I don't say that it's indirectly relevant. So the geographers themselves, in a way, according to this paper, they have a retreat from the rigorous empirical work. And that if we reflect, inside ourselves, we will find it. That how much rigorous empirical work we are going there. And how much impact is required for a particular topic. Now, we ourselves have started looking for the shortcuts. So those of my age who are sitting here, they know that how difficult it was to pursue the empirical work. How much data, how the data had to be collected, how it had to be analyzed. You have the tools now that make the things easier for us. But then, given the facilities that we have, are we up to that particular level? And then, in human geography in particular, but in India there are not many studies, but there are studies which have come up that you have the effect of the postmodern theoretical issues. And postmodern theoretical issues, in fact, have neither a commitment here or nor the commitment there. Because for them, the knowledge itself is relative, it's absolute, there is no absolute or reality that exists. It's only on the relative terms that you look at the world. And then the lack of the political commitments of the geographers, that point I have already pointed out, that we as a geographer, in fact, I'm not saying that you have to you should follow this kind of politics or that kind of politics. But if you have the political commitment, then only you can look at that particular issue with a perspective and you can bring that out. And then intellectual bias against the applied or the policy studies. In fact, there are many intellectuals who could be very good in analyzing the issues and all. But then finally they say that if we have the research on the policy prescriptions and all, that would not matter or that will not be counted. So they themselves have an inherent bias against this kind of researches. Now, finally, I'm coming to the point that what kind of areas where we can look upon the areas where we can contribute in the policy decision making. There are natural disasters. The situation is aggravated, particularly with the climate change. There are so many issues on which, in fact, you can have direct interventions or you can have the policy prescriptions on the heavy precipitations, on the crowding, on the flooding or on the droughts, on the desertifications, on the forest fires. These are all these issues, in fact, which are going on. How many of us, in fact, directly look into this and try to come out with the prescriptions? That is another issue. And then there is a plethora of the socio-economic issues with which our society is dealing with. So where do we stand in that? Or where do the social economic geographer or the human geographers can intervene there? There are a number of issues. The socio-spatial perspective. The socio-spatial perspective. That means that you are looking the things in the spatial perspective, but you do not ignore the social conditions. So it's the combination of these two, that perspective that you have can make you to develop or to do a research that in fact has the policy values. So given the nature of geography, there is another problem that we have, that we say that we are in integrating science, but then the question of the topical specialism, in fact, I already dealt with. Now, finally, one thing that I would like to say is that we are dealing with a question here that was dealt by the Western geographers a long back. Since 1975, those of us who have studied the geographical thought, we know that in the last quarter of the 20th century, the geography was more oriented towards the human geography rather than the physical geographical aspects. Now, this was the period when the Western geographers, in fact, came out with their own perspective. Whether there was a welfare approach, whether this was a radical approach, whether this was a Marxist approach, or it was a feminist approach. Now, actually, all these approaches are the critique, or what we call as the critical theories in geography. And these critical theories, if you put the research through this particular lens and put in front of the policymakers, in fact, that will be seen with the suspicion, because that would be seen something which is against the ruling class or the ruling class ideology. So we have to deal with these issues here also. But I still believe that given the structure, given a large number of the scholars that you have in geography, and given the level of development of geography in India, there are many issues with which we have to deal with. And many of these issues, in fact, have the direct policy implications. We have a developmental process going on. If you have to accept the things as it is, then it is a different thing. But if you see that the development policies or the developmental processes which are going these at this particular juncture of time, or let us say for last 30 years or so, if they are going to favor the people in general, or they are going to favor the business in general. So you have to look at this. By balancing this only, we can reach to the kind of conclusions that what kind of policy research gamut that we want to contribute to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Jagalan, for your nice comment. You have discussed all the matter in very detail. So I hope that audience will consider all these points in their, and young researcher will consider all these points in their future research. Now I request Professor Aswini Luthra, is a town planner. Please maintain the time, 10 to 15 minutes.
Can I have the pointer?
This is the advancement of the slides. If you have a presentation.
At the outset, thank you, the chairperson, dignitaries on the dais, dignitaries after dais, students and friends. I extend my thanks to Geography Department, Himachal Pradesh University, and in particular Dr. Thakur, to invite me here and include me in your fraternity of geographers. Because geography and planning are closely associated, and it is where without the geographical features, planning cannot be done. And it is where, in this context, as said by, I would say, Professor Jaglan has given some golden words. He has given some golden ideas also. And in that light, as he has said, that this is a very pertinent topic, geography, development and public policy. And I'm confining my presentation to urban development and public policy. And is in the relation, what kind of challenges are we facing today? Of course, all of us know, but we have to take an account. We have to revisit with a view to look into what kind of policy dimensions we have to adopt in the times to come. Next is not moving. Which way? This we all know. How are we growing? And if you see the blue line, which is future projection, and if you see this future, the slope is increasing and it is rising steeply. We are urbanizing very rapidly, and as per the latest United Nations report, 60% of the world's population will be urbanized by 2050. Even India would have more than 50% urban population by 2050. So it is very pertinent that we should deliberate on what kind of challenges urban areas are having as on today. It's not working. You can next. But more important is this. There is an imbalance of how much population is residing in what kind of areas. Next, please. And this is the scenario, and this is existing scenario as well as this will happen in future. This is these pie diagrams are for 2050, where it is that only 6% of the towns will be accommodating 60% of the urban population. When we are having this polarization of population, then all kinds of challenges are ought to be in the light of or in the absence of public policy. All the policies rightly said by Dr. Jaglan, I would call that as political policies rather than public policies, because they are meeting some political agenda. Next, please. Now, coming to some of the urban challenges, next. Untamed urban sprawl. Now, this is an evident phenomena all across the urban areas. And if you recognize this particular map, this is Shimla itself. We did a study in 2012. This white portion is the municipal limit, and the remaining is your sprawl area. And you can see that lot of sprawl has. Urban amenities would be provided. And I think the residents of Shimla would appreciate that they are devoid of many of the urban facilities in their respective areas. Now, this is case of Dehradun. There also, even in the forest areas, the urban development has gone. Of course, this is Delhi and Mumbai. Next. Next, please. Now, this is a very important fact that land-man ratio has reduced, and this has reduced drastically. This is case of urban, whereas land-man ratio in 1901 was 11.18. It means 11.8 hectares land was available per capita. In 2011, it has reduced to 0.82. And the result is next, this. Now, in the light of this kind of development, this is again your town, Shimla. Now, we used to visit Shimla for greenery, for nature, and everything, but we find this colorful kind of development. And day before when I came here, I recalled that sometime back I wanted to do my research on the nightscape of the city. शिमला की इतनी लाइट्स दिखाई दी ऊपर से कि मुझे लगा कि अगर लाइट्स का एक पैटर्न बना दिया जाए, अगर आपने वो मूवी देखी हो रब ने बना दी जोड़ी, तो ऊपर से आई लव यू लिखा हुआ सिटी के ऊपर दिखाया गया. सो अगर आप उस तरह के मैसेजेस थ्रू लाइट्स दिखा सको तो नाइटस्केप ऑफ अ सिटी बिकम्स tourism, night tourism in itself. Next, please. Now, this is another phenomena, which is climate change. And all these heat islands, of course, some of the presentations were there on heat islands. All these red patches are the dense areas, but these are the reasons. We are using different materials, glass material, traffic itself. And again, this is your city. Why intentionally I put Shimla? Because Shimla was known for something, but it is facing many problems. Today also there was one presentation, but not for Shimla, but for hill areas where impact of climate change was there, how the glaciers are melting and so on and so forth. Next. Now, this is the result that climate change is bringing. Floods, urban floods, they are known as these days. Next, please. And this was yesterday. Yesterday, Gurgaon, what happened in Gurgaon? And it was warning by the government itself. And it was that you should work from home because Delhi and or NCR is going to face a lot of rain. And you can see the different parts of Gurgaon, they were drowned. Next. Now, overambition of mankind is another challenge we are facing. And if you see, मैं एक एग्जांपल लेता हूँ, बच्चों को भी बताता होता हूँ. Of course, you are not kids. You are many of you are elder to me. अगर आपकी जमीन पर कोई कब्जा कर ले तो आप क्या करोगे? कब्जा हटाओगे? केदारनाथ, all sympathies with the people who lost their life and property. लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि अगर कोई इंद्रदेव है तो उसने अपनी जमीन पे कब्जा लिया था, बिकॉज रिवर एंड रिवर बेड्स शुड बी लेफ्ट. डेवलपमेंट अगर रिवर बेड में आ जाएगी तो उसने अपना कब्जा लिया है और कुछ नहीं किया है. एंड व्हाई इज इट दैट द प्लानर्स और द पॉलिसी मेकर्स हैव woke up out of their sleep, and now there are regulations that from the river bed this much area has to be left, or from the coastal area this much area has to be left, so that the floods are not there. Dams, construction of dams, they are going to create problems in the times to come. Of course, today we are seeing them as solutions to electricity. Next, these are other problems. Slums are cropping up. Now, this is 2011 data where 1 in 6 urban households are the slum dwellers. हर छठी फैमिली एक स्लम dweller है. Unsafe traffic conditions, over exploding traffic densities. शिमला में भी कोई कम नहीं है. And this is a very growing area. We are living in a very insecure society. All these are the challenges where the policy makers have to come up. Next. Water scarcity is another area where 135 LPCD is the standard. The urban areas are having 69 LPCD. Rest is all deficiency. The sewer is disposed of in the fresh water resources, I would say. Solid waste management is another big issue over in all the urban areas. And you see this particular slide where the pollution level is rising, and it was in 2021 when 12 out of 25 top polluting cities of the world were in India. Next, please. And in this context, these sustainable development goals become very pertinent. Next. And in particular, the Sustainable Development Goal number 11, where it talks about sustainable communities, sustainable cities and communities, and different targets are fixed, where all the governments of the nations, they are striving to achieve these objectives, but the pandemic has lashed an impact. These Sustainable Development Goals were set for 2030, and now the fresh report says that it is not possible to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, and the assessment is that these targets will be achieved by 2065. So 2 years pandemic has led us to 35 years of lag. Next. And it is in this context we have to reimagine our urban future. Next, please. And it is in this slide, this particular slide becomes important, where on 3rd of October this year, World Habitat Day is to be celebrated. And this is a sketch by the United Nations itself, where the theme is Mind the Gap, Leave No One and No Place Behind. And it is in this context, again, we have to revisit the public policies already done by the government. Next. And these are the policies. You see, you can list n number of policies, where I have started 2005 when Jananivaram came into being. And from there, you have National Action Plan on Climate Change 2008. It had various policies. Then, of course, we went to smart cities, we went to even the latest one, 2021, India's net zero target in the COP26 summit. So it is not that the government is not making policies. The issue is sincere execution of the policies. How far are we achieving? How far are we making our efforts to go ahead with respect to these policies? Next, please. Now, all these symbols you must have seen, and this was the first Make in India program, and smart cities, then digital India, and what not is coming in the fresh policy making. The old policies are given new shape. Next. And it is in this relation, some of the policy recommendations which came into my mind, I place like this. Next. To frame any public policy, we have to adopt these. Holistic visionary approach, which is not for 15, 20 years. It has to be 100 years, I would say. This is called perspective planning. Singapore got independence in 1948. And where Singapore today is and where India is, it is out of vision of their prime minister at that moment. It was an island or a small colony of fishermen, and now you see where Singapore has gone. So we have to have visionary approach. Comprehensive, innovative planning has to be there because technology is fast changing, and we have to adopt these things in our policy making. Pragmatic development strategies. It should not be only paper kind of strategy. It should be implementable strategy where public participation is there. Whenever the plans are prepared, no one knows the plans are being prepared. Like all these policies, when they have come up, where the public was, where public opinion was. Now is a age where Google Forms can be there. You shoot Google Form and get the ideas from the public. Include them into your policy making. Advanced resource planning. Resources are limited. Being a student of economics, it was that in those years, classical economics, because resources are unlimited. Now they are not unlimited. I intentionally brought this bottle here. This water was unlimited, fresh water in Punjab, I would say, and Pyos were there, Chabils were there, but now we are getting this bottled water. What for? Fresh water is limited now. Then state of art, Internet of Things. एक पॉलिसी से नहीं, एक चीज से नहीं, वी हैव टू इंटीग्रेट ऑल दोज थिंग्स. सिर्फ ज्योग्राफी नहीं, हमें सोशियोलॉजी भी साथ में लेनी होगी, हिस्ट्री भी साथ में लेनी होगी, केमिस्ट्री भी साथ में. एवरीथिंग हैज टू बी इंटीग्रेटेड. फ्यूचरिस्टिक कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग प्रैक्टिसेस. कल एक यूपी में सेमिनार हुआ है, नेशनल अर्बन प्लानिंग कॉन्क्लेव, और उसमें आज की अखबार में न्यूज़ है 10 खरब डॉलर अर्थव्यवस्था के लिए शहरों का सुनियोजित विकास पहली शर्त. नाउ दीज आर स्टेटमेंट्स, एंड इफ दिस मच इन्वेस्टमेंट इज गोइंग टू द अर्बन एरियाज, then definitely the public policy has to be very proactive. Otherwise, from where the investment is coming? They are the MNCs investing here. So we have to be very, very pragmatic in approach. Strict implementation and enforcement of whatever we do, and then better leadership and governance. Unfortunately, जैसे ही हमारी गवर्नेंस चेंज होती है, गवर्नमेंट चेंज होती, पॉलिसीज भी चेंज होनी शुरू हो जाती है. This should be made a practice, which is a practice in many of the countries, I would say, European and in America also, they follow. They don't negate. तो पिछले ने किया उसको आगे लेके चलते हैं. Amendments are always there. यहाँ पर तो काट ही देते हैं. And it is in this light that all these points, they become key to productive, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable future urban living. And in this light, last please, of course I have few slides more, but I will restrict myself to this only, that in the light of the urban challenges, we need to have perspective planning for controlled urban sprawl. 15-20 years की अप्रोच हमें छोड़नी पड़ेगी. Climate sensitive smart city planning has to be adopted. ये climate change जो भी आ रहा है, we cannot neglect it. अभी जितनी भी मास्टर प्लानिंग अप्रोच हो रही है, वो शायद ज्योग्राफी के बेस पे हो रही है, सोशो इकोनॉमिक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स के बेस पे हो रही है, लेकिन हमें क्लाइमेट चेंज के लैंड यूज प्लान बन जाता है, बट इट इज नॉट टेकिंग नोट ऑफ क्लाइमेट. Flood resilient urban planning and development has to be there. There is a concept of sponge city. What is that concept? City के नीचे टैंक बने हुए हैं पानी के. जितना ये बारिश का पानी है उन टैंक्स में जाएगा और वो टैंक का पानी जो है इस्तेमाल होएगा. आपके किसी भी शहर में कोई बूंद पानी ठहरता ही नहीं है, नीचे चला जाता है उसी वक्त, क्योंकि हम टेरेन को डिस्टर्ब कर देते हैं। जहाँ पे लो लाइंग एरिया, नेचर ने ऊंचा और नीचा इलाका बनाया है, हम नीचे इलाके को भर के डेवलपमेंट कर देते हैं। पानी जाएगा कहाँ पे? आपके घरों में ही घुसेगा। मैं तो फिर वही कहता हूँ, वो अपना पोजेशन लेने आता है फिर तो। मैन इज हाउसिंग फॉर ऑल एंड स्लम फ्री सिटी, क्योंकि जो माइंड द गैप उसमें EWS क्लास भी है, तो उसके लिए हमें काम करना पड़ेगा। स्लम फ्री सिटी, सस्टेनेबल ट्रांसपोर्टेशन थ्रू कॉम्पैक्ट सिटी प्लानिंग। Why we need to travel longer distances? Why can't we develop self-sustained neighborhoods where your needs are met within? कोविड में जो ये सोसाइटीज बनी हुई थी दिल्ली में भी, वो उनमें जो स्प्रेड है वो कम हुआ। उन्होंने बाहर वाला कोई आने ही नहीं दिया। उनकी सारी की सारी ज़रूरतें जो डेली नीड्स है वो वहीं पे हो रही थी। सब्जी वाला है तो उसकी दुकान अंदर ही है, तो बाहर से सब्जी लेके आया, एक ही आदमी है ना, उसको सैनिटाइज कर दिया। So it is in that context, compact city development has to be there. And in the end, green infrastructure planning and development. ये हमें वर्ड ग्रीन को हमें स्ट्रेस करना पड़ेगा। हम जो भी करें, that should be environment friendly. If we don't it, then hazards of life let us face. Thank you very much.
For your nice presentation, and you have thrown light on future public policy and future research. Thank you very much, sir. Now I'm going to invite Professor Sarfaraz Alam because he has some network problem. So, Professor Sarfaraz Alam, now you are present your thought.
So, is my PowerPoint? Can you see my PowerPoint, sir?
No.
Okay. Should I start?
Yes, Professor Sarfaraz.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Chairperson of the session, Professor S.T. Rai, my fellow panelists, distinguished participants, Sabhi Namaskar. At the very outset, I would like to thank Dr. B.R. Thakur and his team for giving me this opportunity to share my views on a very pertinent theme of geography, development, and public policy. I would start my views by highlighting two golden points which I have said about Professor Jagran's presentation. That was highlighted by Professor Jagran. One is that political commitment is needed, no matter whether you are from left, center, or right. You have to take a political stand, and that the stand has to be reasoned. And in order to defend that stand, one has to really work hard, collect empirical facts, and present before the policymakers. It is the second point that I would focus my presentation on, that geography is an integrating science. When we say geography is an integrating science, it means they need to link social and spatial. This point was also highlighted by Professor Jagran. So, my presentation basically focuses on how the process of social exclusion can be understood by applying geographical perspective in India. So now before that, let me say two things and why this about India and why these two themes are very popular when we talk about public policy. One is India is a land of enormous diversity. I'm not talking about physical diversity, I'm talking about social, economic, and cultural diversity. And this diversity is a site of innovation, and it also provides a stability to the country. However, the second issue that is also very pertinent is that there is severe economic disparity. When diversity is good, but disparity is certainly not good. Disparity is a symptom of a society which is having not, which is basically having a ill health or bad health. The problem starts when diversity becomes the basis of disparity. And using a geographical perspective, we can say that both diversity and disparity both have a geographical basis. Because in India, there is regional basis of diversity. So if we speak about languages, so we have different languages occupying different geographical spaces. Similarly, different tribal communities occupy different geographical spaces. And there is also a spatial dimension of disparity. So disparity is not only in terms of social, but there are disparity over geographical space. However, sometimes because of close connection of social and spatial, what we consider social disparity is also a geographical disparity, and what we call geographical disparity or spatial disparity also is a symptom of social disparity. So, my views are that the two areas where geographers can significantly contribute towards public policy making is that plus preservation of diversity and reduction of disparity. So with this brief introduction, I would like to focus my presentation on the process of socio-spatial exclusion. Exclusion is a social phenomenon and it happens in geographical space. So if we want to understand the process of social exclusion, we have to understand the linkage between geography and society. Now, geography is often understood as a spatial science. So when we say spatial science, we raise three types of important questions. Where is it? Why is it there? And so on. What are the consequences and implications of a particular location or spatial distribution? Talking about society, which is basically a network of social relations. So in society, we have individuals, groups, and institutions. And these individuals, groups, and institutions are inextricably linked to each other, and a relationship between individuals and individuals, between individuals and groups, between groups and individuals, between individuals and groups and institutions. And at the same time, there are laws, customs, traditions, and circumstances which actually govern the pattern of interaction between individual groups and institutions. So the phenomenon of social exclusion is basically a result of how space and society interact. That is, where social is spatial and spatial is also becomes social. So the relationship between therefore they need to understand the relationship between space and exclusion. Now, exclusion as a social reality is can be understood both as a form and as a process. Whether you take it as a form or process, it actually exists and operates across a space and specific places. So no social process can operate on the head of a pin. It requires a space, and with reference to carrying out social processes, the quality of a space varies, and also the geometry of a space behave differently. So these facts make the study of the spatial dimension of student extremely important. The study of the spatial dimension of students called for a deeper investigation of relationship between the space and society. And there are two approaches, and both approaches are well known to all geographers. One is the social organization of space, and the second is the spatial organization of society. By social organization of space, we mean the various ways in which society organizes ourselves to achieve some predetermined objectives. That is how society locates certain human activities and space in order to influence, define, or control pattern of social interaction. And how society define and give meaning and significance to a space in order to exclude the others. So this is what we call reflectionist view. That is seeing the space or spatial arrangement as a reflection or outcome of some kind of social structures and social processes. That means here that the focus is how social structures and social processes shape the arrangement on geographical space, or how they shape the location and distribution on the earth surface. The second point is of spatial organization of society, and it is more geographical. Uh, the spatial organization of society refers to the way social phenomena are arranged on Earth's surface. So geographers map pattern, order, and coherence formed by the spatial arrangement of phenomena on the Earth's surface. They also seek to find out underlying principles or underlying causes which govern the arrangement of phenomena on the Earth's surface. So social structures and social processes are not found to operate on the Earth's surface, but they are also affected by it. That because the quality of the space varies significantly. So therefore, the space does influence the operation of social processes. So this is what we call a spatial determinist or a specialist view. We say that seeing social structure and processes as a product of spatial arrangement. That means we try to understand how a space and a spatial arrangement influence social processes and social structures. So it is in this sense we have to understand that what we call spatial is basically social. And when we say social, it is also political. Because when we say social, it refers to the pattern of interaction, pattern of relationship between groups, individuals, and institutions. And all the relationships, in all the relationships, power is inherent. And power is unequally distributed among individuals, groups, and communities and institutions. So therefore, if we really want to understand the spatial, we have to understand how the unequal distribution of power in the society shape and influence the structuring of the space, whether we talk about the village or the city or nation at large. So here I would like to quote Winston Churchill, the Second World War Prime Minister of England. He says, I quote, "We shape our buildings, and afterwards, our building shape us." So, the moment we construct our building, so the rooms, the location of rooms, kitchen, and all these things, then our everyday behavior within that house get affected. We are actually, our movement is controlled by the structure of the building. So I have a little bit modified this quotation. We shape our buildings, that is houses, including houses, villages and cities, with an intention. That this shaping is very deliberate and intentional. So like planning, we talk about city planning is very deliberate and intentional. So we shape our buildings, including houses, villages and cities, with an intention that our buildings should shape us. Like you can see how our urban spaces are being reshaped especially reorganized. You can see road widening, flyover construction of large number of flyovers, even the small towns, subways, overbridges. Then there is slum clearance. Then there is also intensive beautification, and there are also dedicated roads where auto rickshaws and rickshaw pullers are not allowed. So why are these things being done? It is the shape, these things, the cities are being reorganized in order to shape pattern of interpersonal and intergroup relationships in the city. Who belongs to which part of the city? Who is invited where? Who is outsider in which part of the city? Who is insider in which part of the city? So, for example, once you construct flyovers, then that road becomes inaccessible to explorers. Same with the subway and overbridges. And similarly, we have policy of slum clearance in the name of beautification of cities, so that people, the slum dwellers, who are the workers and who are the Indians of the city, they are thrown out of the city space, and they have to, they are not only being thrown out of city space, but they are also being thrown out of their workplace. So that means they have to travel to long distances, they spend a lot of money and time to reach to their workplace. So, as a geographer, we have to see how social and spatial connive and interact with each other. And that's how Professor Dagwan, when he said that it is very important when we talk about integrating science. So, integrating science calls for understanding of society and space as interacting in very complex and dynamic ways. Now, talking about relationship between geography and exclusion, basically geographical perspective is lacking in the study of exclusion, and exclusion can be seen everywhere in cities, in villages, and also at international geographical scale. So this is despite the fact that geographical realities influence the forms and process of social exclusion. And this lack of sensitivities on the part of geography or on the part of social scientists also has forced Sibley, who is basically a very important scholar of social exclusion, he is a geographer, that exclusion of geography from inclusion and exclusion discourse. And therefore, there is a need to bring in a space in exclusion discourse, and how geography can play an important role in the understanding of forms of exclusion as well as process of exclusion. So these are the 5 different ways. One is we can map geography of exclusion. We can also try to find out the geographical factors which causes exclusion. We can also say how geography is used or the space is used for exclusion, as Professor Gupta was saying that in Delhi that the neighborhood society had lesser incidence of COVID. But it is also important to note that what about those people who are depending on these neighborhoods for their everyday employment, the guys and all those maid workers who are working in these people, they were thrown out of their workplace. So you can reorganize the space for schooling people. This is also a reality. And then there is geographies of excluded and geography for exclusion. Geography can for inclusion. Geography can also be used as a powerful tool to reduce the process of exclusion. So we can discuss one by one. One is, for example, geography of exclusion. We can see the realities of some of the old and modern and progressive cities by seeing these data. That there are some underlying order and pattern in the distribution of excluded groups in the city, and one can map these patterns. Let us take Rajkot. 80% of the Rajkot cities, localities, do not have single SC inhabitants. imagine 80%. Kolkata, which is considered a very progressive city, 60% of Kolkata localities don't have a single SC resident. These are all empirical studies by IIM Bangalore. Then around 20% of Bangalore colonies have no SC residents. You can take it at a state level. In West Bengal, SC constitute 20% of the population, while in Kolkata, they constitute only 5.23 of the population. Similarly, scheduled tribe population in Kolkata, there are only 0.28% of scheduled tribe population in Kolkata, but they constitute 6% of the total population of West Bengal. So if urbanization is considered as a process of development, then we have to also consider how a section of people remain excluded from this process of modernization and development. So this point, by just mapping how cities are organized, how nation is organized, one can see who is inside the city, who is inside the development process, who is outside. You can see this is a map of Varanasi, this is a published map. You
Professor,
can see this is river Ganges.
Professor
and
Sarfraz,
This is a riverfront settlement. Varanasi is a riverfront city. So you can see the older part of the city.
Professor Sarfraz, please maintain the time.
Yes, sir.
Time constraint is here, so please conclude your lecture.
Okay, sir. Can I have 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes?
Less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Because we
So you can see Varanasi, the core part of the city, you have actually SC population is virtually absent. Now, there is a geographical factors behind exclusion. I don't want to discuss because time is limited. People living in geographical periphery often remain on social, economic, and political margin also. And we also know that how space is used as a tool to exclude people. We all know about how a section of people in the villages live in areas which are considered outside the village, what we call Dakshin Tola in this part of UP and Bihar, and how slum rehabilitation program will lead to peripheralization, geographical peripheralization of slum dwellers in Indian cities. And then how we need to map the everyday life of people who are excluded in cities and villages. I'll just give you one example. Juhupura is a neighborhood in Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is a very, very rich city. Now this Juhupura has a population, it's a slum, has a population of 4 lakh. It's very crowded, walled from outside. Education and health care facilities are very, very minimal. There are narrow lanes, poor sewage and water supply, and informal economic activities are sprawling. So there is a development of city within the city, what we call Muslim city within Ahmedabad city. And as a result, what I'm trying to argue here is that geographers also need to map the everyday life of people living in excluded spaces. And geography, finally, if society uses a space as a tool to exclude others, a space can also be used as a tool for integration of some excluded people. So we can have some, for example, banks, schools, and healthcare facilities in areas which are unserved, particularly you can say Juhupura area. We can also talk about development of common residential colony for people belonging to different class, faith, and speaking different languages. Because Indian cities, the reality of Indian cities is that it is a highly segregated space. And segregation is not good in the health of the city and also in the interest of the nation. Because you can see in social media, people are in fact at war against each other in social media. Now, in conclusion, I can say that geography does offer insight into the understanding of exclusion, social exclusion. But what is needed? We need more empirical studies to explain the mechanism of this relationship. Therefore, since empirical studies are lacking, therefore geography has remained excluded from exclusion studies. Social scientists in India have studied exclusion as a part of social organization of space. For them, space is a passive component of explaining exclusion. Space doesn't matter. Their studies have mainly focused on the question of how do social groups and communities use the space as a tool to control other groups and communities. Geographical space does exercise an independent and autonomous effect on the process of exclusion. And it also influences the process of exclusion in combination with other dimensions of exclusion. For example, tribal population living in central part of India are marginalized both on account of their being tribal and also living in distant places from the metropolis. So this relationship, this case, I am reiterating again and again that unless and until geographers try to take social sciences seriously, their research will not be taken seriously by larger public academia. So with these words, thank you very much. I'm sorry for exceeding the given time. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Prakash, for your nice presentation. And you have covered all the aspects of the society, and you have given the certain examples in the Indian context. Thank you very much. Now I request
Thank you, sir.
Professor Dhotre, please.
This one. This one. Disconnect. Dignitaries on the dais, Professor S.C. Rai, Professor Jaglan, Professor Ashwini Luthra, Professor Anuja Tigga, and Professor Sarfaraz Alam. Dignitaries of the dais, Vice Chancellor D.D. Sharma, Professor Mar, Professor Bharadwaj, Professor Kaushal Sharma, Dr. B.R. Thakur and his team, dear participants, dear students, a very good afternoon. At the outset, I would like to thank the Department of Geography, Himachal Pradesh University for inviting me and giving me a chance to express myself in this very important session. Since my field of study is climatology, so my discussion will be limited to climatology and the subject of climate as such. Presentation is there. So, whenever we talk about climate as or including it in the public policy, we have seen that whenever something disastrous happens, only then people start thinking about climate and the related environmental issues as such. Yeah. So we all know that climate is a natural resource and it has been one of the major factors that determines the distribution of natural flora, fauna, even the more important activity like agriculture, industrial sector, tourism, transportation, and many other sectors. And we have already always, appreciated how climate is useful in all these sectors and how it drives the activities. Then recently, climate variability and climate change, it is also taken up as a major research of geography through one of the specialization in geography, that is climatology. And geographers, since they have a very powerful tool, map, we can map, and through maps we can show what is changing and where. And my fellow panelists also, they used maps also. And Professor Jaglan, he also noted one thing, that how do geographers contribute? So this is one area that we can contribute, and we can also have a look at how the development has occurred and what can be expected in the future. Professor Ashwini Luthra, he talked about urbanization, which is another major issue, and it is inevitable that in the future, majority of our population will be living in the urban areas. And these are the areas where there will be drastic changes as far as climate is concerned, particularly microclimate. And climate is also related to sustainable development because there might be trade-off between development aspirations and mitigations. So always we try to say that the development, that future development should be sustainable, but at the same time our needs, they are always inclined towards development and what we can achieve through development. So, in the light of climate change and its impact on various sectors, what has been seen that mostly the contribution of anthropogenic causes, it is more in the climate change, and it has been and it has been very well documented. We have to see that which regions are susceptible to climate change, and we have to identify those particular areas. As far as India is concerned, we can start with, it's not changing. Yeah. So we can map the areas where the parameters have changed drastically. For example, to start with, we can map temperature. Here we have tried to map which temperature trends for last 100 years in various parts of India through major cities. And we can clearly see that globally, though we are saying that the temperatures have increased by 1.2 degrees Celsius, we have many examples in India where the temperatures have increased by 3 to 4 degrees Celsius in the last 100 years. And now people have started understanding. We have areas like Kerala, which is a more tropical location, but still they were exposed to higher temperatures, and recently they are also exposed to very high rainfall, and that is what is troubling. And recently our scientists from Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, they were invited to make presentation in the Kerala Assembly, because Kerala is one such area where flash floods and flooding has been experienced in last couple of years, and now they are taking it very, very seriously. Though the area receives overall very high normal rainfall, but these are the areas where we need to concentrate, and we can show clearly that which are the areas where the climate variability is then Professor Ashwini Luthra also talked about urbanization, and if you look at our major cities, we find that in the last 100 or 120 years as such, all these cities, they are experiencing very high temperatures. And earlier it was considered that the cities' temperatures should be excluded from looking at climate change, but urban and related processes, they cannot be looked upon by saying that this is what is going to happen just because it is the impact of urbanization. But now people have understood that what impact it can have. And we can also try to map out certain things like extremes, temperature extremes, and we can show people that which are the areas where the extremes are increasing, because extremes control many other activities also. And here we could see that it is the western peninsula that where the extremes like very high temperatures or heat waves, they are increasing, and they are increasing, and particularly coastal areas are areas where we find the cities have grown and our population is also concentrated in the coastal areas. So in the future, these will be the areas where people will be mostly affected and various sectors will be mostly affected, and this should be included in the public policy. IMD also has mapped areas where the rainfall is increasing or decreasing, and they are also important because we are mostly now talking about agriculture, and we would like to provide for each and everyone. Though we have record agricultural production, but there are certain areas where the rainfall will be decreasing and certain areas where the rainfall is increasing. So when you say increasing rainfall in certain very dry areas, it also means that we are going to have very high rainfall events in some other areas, which cannot be good for agriculture as such. Another important aspect that geographers study are the drought and how drought is affecting different areas. We map droughts and the intensity of drought. Here in this particular study, we have mapped drought intensity in Gujarat and Rajasthan, which are arid areas, but still they are very, very significantly contributing in the agricultural production of India. And we could see that some areas in Gujarat where the drought intensity is increasing. These are also the areas where we found that the temperature is increasing. So if the temperature is increasing, our other processes like evapotranspiration, they will be increasing and making the areas more and more arid day together. Then another sector where we can contribute is the heat stress. Heat stress is one major part that is very closely related to human health as such. And applications of heat stress, it include to develop indigenous heat stress warning system for determining fields like temperature, particularly for highly vulnerable groups, to assess cooling energy demand. As the temperatures increase, the demand for cooling energy, it is also going to increase, and that is one area where we have to look upon. We are having power shortages in many places, and this demand will keep on increasing day by day because of the heat stress is increasing. It also can be used to determine occupational heat stress limits for outdoor and semi-outdoor workers. As we say, we have to increase industrial production, we have to increase, depend on the industries. We are also going to need many workers there, and heat stress is going to actually work in the opposite way by reducing the working hours. So if we also mapped over South India that which are the areas or which are the cities where this thermal stress is increasing, and in 80% of the cases we found that the thermal stress is increasing, which is then affecting the human health as such, and also the ability of the people to perform their day-to-day activities is affected because of the increasing the heat stress. We also analyzed occupational heat stress using wet bulb globe temperature, and what we found is that everywhere again the occupational heat stress is increasing, the trends in the last 30-40 years, and same thing is going to happen in the future. You take any particular city, we have hardly few cities which we can count on our fingers where it is decreasing, otherwise everywhere over southern India. Now it is always advocated that southern India is having higher temperatures and we are getting used to it, but that is not the case. The cases related to urban health, the cases related to heat stress, they are also increasing there. And what we found that if we look at the working hours as such, which are, and whether the working hours of the laborers or the people working outside in the outdoor environment are increasing or decreasing, and we found that because of the metabolic activity during summer season, in areas we find that the working hours are decreasing. For example, Ahmedabad, if you look at Ahmedabad in particular, we find that the working hours decrease by 75% during summer season. And some other areas like Nagpur, Kolkata, there also the decrease in the working hours is increasing. That means people that their productivity is also decreasing because they are not comfortably working and the outdoor environment is not very comfortable for them. So such things we can contribute, and we can tell the government or the people that what kind of policies, whether we can change the working hours or keep it flexible. If you are going to have hours from 10 to 4 or between 5 during summer season, they are not going to help. Another sector that we look upon is the tourism sector, and that we can study through using tourism climate index as such. And we have found out, this is one particular case study, that currently what is the tourism climate index, whether the temperatures or the conditions they are acceptable, good, unacceptable, and what is going to happen in the future, because tourism is one particular industry that is climate dependent. And in one of the surveys that was done for people who have visited Europe, they were asked that would you like to visit Europe again, and for what reason. Majority of them, they said would like to visit that particular Europe again, that is, and only because of the climate, though it has a very, very beautiful cultural landscape, because the climate there is very salubrious. And same thing happens with the tourism, that people would like to visit areas where the environmental conditions are comfortable. And in the future, with modeling, we can also see that whether the conditions will be good in the future, and if they will be good in the future, we can map out those areas which will be supporting tourism activities. That can be, and this we did with the help of Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. And because the modeling part is not ours, but we can always take help of the surrounding areas. Another, now the map is not visible, but another thing that Professor Luthra also pointed out is the urban heat islands. These urban heat islands are now becoming an important part of the planning. We have now everywhere having regional In case of Pune, we have Pune Metropolitan Development Authority. In case of Chennai, they have Chennai Metropolitan Development Authority. And wherever heat stress is increasing, people are understanding that. For example, Ahmedabad has its own heat action plan, because and the mitigation measures, they are taking up many activities like green roofs, or coloring the roofs with white, or the paints which would reflect the incoming solar radiation and keep the buildings cooler. In the same way, before people would like now to map urban heat islands. Before I came for this seminar this Monday, I was giving a presentation for United Nations Environment Program Advisor, and they wanted to map out Chennai Metropolitan Regional Development Authority's area for urban heat island, and to chart out what can be done in future, and what kind of mitigation measures can be done. So geographers can really contribute to all these things. What I would like to say is that climate is an independent variable that touches every aspect of the human life, and therefore is closely linked to regional development. On the other hand, impact studies, they indicate the effect of development on the region's climate, which guides us to make corrective measures for the future, that in the future what we can do. Climate is also one of the aspects to consider for in planning of sustainable development. So wherever sustainable development comes, now for India, the India Climate Action Plan, it has got 8 programs, and one of the programs is sustainable housing, and also one of the program that focuses on the climate of the Himalayas and how it is going to impact the residents over there. Future development will be governed by climate change mitigation or adaptive measures as such. So whatever planning we are going to have, every time the climate will be considered as an important aspect. And to undertake low carbon resilient development, it will be vital to deploy government-wide approaches that integrate climate and development considerations. So here we have got a very good area that we could contribute, because we have been trained and we are having all those tools, statistical tools, and the advent of remote sensing and geoinformatics has strengthened our tool of map making, through which we can contribute effectively, and we can pinpointedly show areas where we need to consider and concentrate as far as the public policy is concerned. I would like to thank the organizers again for inviting me, and thank you all everyone for patiently listening.
Thank you, Professor Dhokre, for your nice and intensive work on the climatology, and you have given the heat stress is very dangerous to the human health, and you have also suggested some tourism climate index to assessing tourism potential in future areas. So thank you very much once again. Now I invite our last panelist, Professor Anuja Tigga.
Distinguished professors of geography, Professor S.C. Rai, and my fellow panelists on the dais, Professor D.D. Sharma, Professor Bhardwaj, Professor Mar, and other delegates, my student friends, very good afternoon to all of you. And at the outset, I would like to extend my heartiest thanks to all the members of Geographical Society of Himachal Pradesh, and the convener, Professor B.R. Thakur sir, for giving me this opportunity to stand before you and to present my views on geography, development, and public policy. Next slide. So here I have divided my discussion on 3 aspects, as the theme is there. First is geography, the other one is development, and the third one is public policy. So when we are all geographers, we know that geography has some inherent characteristics. Geography helps us to see the whole world as one unit, right? So we see the earth as one system, and within that we see the unity in diversity, and we see the temporal and spatial changes, which helps us to analyze spatio-temporal analysis, right? For geography adds and gives us another dimension to look at the likeness and differences among the places, and how people respond depends on what type of nature they live in. So other aspects what geography help us to look at is nothing is worthless. So each and every place of the earth, no matter whether it's a desert, whether it's a ice-cladded mountains, or whether it's a fertile land, nothing is meaningless or worthless. Somehow, somewhere, it has its meaning. They are there for some purpose. So we should not ignore some things which are not very productive, but they are there to maintain the natural or ecological balance. Geography also helps us to identify and see things in different orders. We see that we have hierarchical things, and then each and every things are interrelated or having some association in that. Then we as a geographers look into what is where and why it is where, and what it is, and what type of purpose that it is serving. Then we explore geography in terms of distances, directions, measurements, and through this GIS and remote sensing, we have the capability to look more precisely what are the topological concepts that deals with the adjacency, contiguity, and containment. So this approach, being a geographer, we get from geography. So now how it can be used in developmental aspects. So first I would like to define what development is. Development is an improvement in the quality of life and creation of conditions for its self-sustenance. Here I have put question mark after people. So are we thinking development only for the people? If our focus is only on people, then we are ignoring something. Being a geographer, we know that we are dealing with the earth and its components, which are explained, we all know very well: hydrosphere, atmosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere. Biosphere, man, we are in the as a part of biosphere, but our existence and our betterment lies in the betterment of hydrosphere, atmosphere, and lithosphere. So we need to have, when we look at the development point of view, we should have a balanced point of view, ecological point of view. Then again, one thing strikes in my mind when I teach my students that these are biotic things and these are non-biotic things. So when we say that we define biotic and abiotic, that it is having life, it is not having life, right? So these are independent variables. As sir also said, that climate is an independent variable, but it impacts other things. But are we not impacting the climate in such way or some way or the other, right? So we are ignoring that part in development or in our public policies. That is why we are facing that we are having lands as dead land. So we ignored that part. That is why we have now wastelands, right? And many fertile lands are turning out. Water is being polluted. The atmosphere, the global warming, climate change, and all its impacts are known to everyone. Next one. So here again, I have just listed out the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It's known to everyone, but what I want to emphasize here, that out of 17, again the focus on atmosphere or hydrosphere, right, and lithosphere. So three things have been given some emphasis. So 3 points are there. So 13 encompasses on climate action, 14 is on water, whatever the life, aquatic life, and the quality of life is there, quality of water, and the third one is life on land. So again we see the weightage is more on people. We are here. So here there are again two approaches in geography, right? So one is earth as a place of man. We see that the earth is a place where man is living, right? Where man is dominant, and the public policies are also oriented towards that, meeting that goal. And the other one is we have to see that where man stands, man as a component of the earth, right? So we have to see where we have to make a balance. Next one. So I have just identified that how do we measure development. So obviously through some indicators, and in our new planning where Niti Aayog is taking care of, we have number of indexes or indices are there, and again all are given focus on betterment of life of people, and then one is there finally, the first one, composite water management index. So unless until we get the better things from the environment, our life or our quality of life would not be good. So we have to think of this aspect also when we frame some policies. Next. Skip. Skip this. Yeah, skip. 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 Right. So now, again, I am coming to the third point, that is public policy. Some issues are there. So our focus should be, I would like to stress upon the quality and the planning, as Sir Luthra sir also said, the perspective planning, very long time planning. We should not just think for 1 year, 2 years. There are certain problems which needs to be tackled very quickly, and for that we can have very short-term planning. But we should also think for the what actions we are taking today and what kind of impact it will have on long coming years, right? So again we have the issues or the debates which are on. I have highlighted some of the things. So what should be the policies? Like if we should go for the policies which would impact more for employment generation, or we should allow for automation where people will be nowhere. Like there should be a balance. So self-employed or employed, the relationship, or the policies to give or to take, right? So some then exploitation versus restoration. So how we look at the resources. The resources are there, and my fellow panelists were also saying that the corporate-based policies are there, or people-based or the environment-based policies are there. We need to think of that, and then we have the policies to, as far as resources are concerned, reduce, reuse, recover kind of a thing. Then focus on, there will be always two things, like high performing areas and low performing areas. So our focus should be on what, right? So again balance is required. Then proper and improper uses of resources. Then authorities should be work as a facilitator or as a regulator. Again there is a difference. Then online and offline, the choice, right? So here we are presenting offline, but Sarfaraz sir gave online. So whatever is viable, we have to think and adopt in that way. Then there are some things which are proprietary licenses kind of a thing, where we have to pay and use, and there are many things which are freely available, or based on internet or connectivity we can make use of that. So we have to think what can be given to people which with very less investment they can afford or make use of that. Then specialization versus diversification, separation versus integration, impacted versus resilient. So now through COVID we understood that COVID came to the whole of the globe and impacted, but the impact level is different. Some pockets remain resilient, they were not affected, but somewhere some people where the livelihood was snatched away from them, some people lost their life. So some areas or some people are there which are very, very vulnerable. So we have to have a different policies for different set of people that we have to think. Then sensitive versus insensitive human behavior while making our policies. And then change seeking from inside or outside. So many a times change comes that the change is being imposed upon the people without their likeness. So we have to just give some consideration for their point of view also. Next one. So I think then when we go for planning or future planning, we should ensure the quality of life to all biotic and non-biotic elements and allow them to come or make their contribution to the best maximum potential level. And then we should follow that first we need to identify the problem, understand the nature of the problem, understand the existing policies, and we need to understand where the lacuna is, and then we can make a change in that which will suit, or we think that it will bring some betterment in that problematic area. Then only we can change. Right? If the policies are working well, then there is no need to go for change. Then we should focus for local areas and then try to bring solutions from the local area only. And then we should also include people's participation and the willingness, then universalization of facilities. Many facilities are found only in the urban areas like Digital India, smart cities, this, and many areas are still left behind. Then we have to also have a balance between what is economically and socially viable. Then policies, when we have one nation, one umbrella, so many policies can be implemented or maybe governed better if there is one authority. Then, as Sir said, we have mapping tools and all, so we can make use of that, and very quickly we can come up with the results as maps, and then we can identify the problematic areas easily. Then, degree of resilience. So, how we are creating the environment for each and every component to work under abnormal situations. Or normal situations, our performance is alright, but in the abnormal situations, what would be the performance? That kind of future understanding should also be considered. Then this recycling is over. Then alignment with global policies. So the sustainable development goals are given and adapted by all the nations of the globe. So this is a global policy, but still we are pursuing that. And then dissemination of knowledge from experts to laymen. So many scientific organizations are there, they have good knowledge, but the policy should be there that that knowledge has to given to the grassroots level people, right, when it is useful for them. So that hindrance should not be there. Then differential treatment for the best to poor performance, and if some areas are performing poorly, then some remedial measures should be adopted. Then setting targets and emulate. So we should always think that where the people or the policies are working in the best way, and then we try to take that as a model. If it is really viable for economically and socially for us, or otherwise we can take a new policy. Then finding out the gap between what is existing and what is expected and devise the solution accordingly. And then again we can have the pyramid approach in distributing the jobs also, like local preference to global preference. Like local area, local people, local development should also be focused, so that unnecessary travel and unnecessary things can be avoided. Then the resources should be located based on the need, and then we always also have the sense of responsibility. So if we have two things, right, rights and duties. So every time we should also have focus what better results we can give. So with this, my delivery comes to an end. Thank you. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Professor Anuja Tigga. You have very nicely explained about the geography and holistic synthesis, and you have explained that nothing is meaningless. It's a very important thing, and I hope that the whole audience will find his approach, how you are going to use all these things in better management and public policy. So now the session is open for one or two pertinent questions. If anybody is interested to know, ask any question or any suggestion or any query, so please ask. Our panelist is here. So one or two question is allowed only. So if there is no question, then I'm going to summarize the things. The whole panelist is talking about the development and public policy, land use change, climate change. All the panelists cover all these things. So now I'm going to focus only on the land use change because all the geographers is working on the land use change and how land use change is contributing to the climate change. Now I did one study in the Himalayan region in Sikkim Himalaya. It's a very small watershed. The area is about 3,000 hectare. And due to land use land cover change, the carbon, as you know, that carbon is going to the atmosphere and becomes CO2. So in the small watershed, the area around 3,014 hectare released 305 into 10 to the power 3 ton carbon in 13 years. So it translates that 7.78 ton carbon per hectare per year going to the atmosphere. So you can imagine how much, due to land use land cover change, we are contributing carbon to the atmosphere. That's why global warming and climate is changing. And if you translate this into Sikkim state, because the watershed which I have selected is the representative of the cover the Indian entire Himalayan region, because the altitudinal variation is very good. All ethnic groups are found in that area, and all land use practices except alpine pasture found in that watershed. So in that watershed, so if the 7.78 hectare ton carbon, if you take this, so from entire Sikkim Himalaya contributing 22.16 into 10 to the power 5 ton carbon per year in the atmosphere. And if you translate in the entire Himalayan region, so the entire Himalayan region due to land use land cover change contribute 520.6 into 10 to the power 5 ton carbon per year. So you can imagine how much carbon we are contributing in the due to land use land cover, and we are not focusing on this aspect only. We are blaming the industrial pollution or vehicular pollution and other things. So this geographer should consider land use land cover change, how much we are contributing. And if you are see in global level, so 0.9 petagram carbon released due to deforestation and land use land cover change, and 1 petagram is 10 to the power 15. So this is the very important sector where geographer can contribute. Another thing I can give you example. Professor Luthra has already given the focus on the urban development, and he has given that 6% of town accommodating 60% of the population. and in 2050, about 60% world population is going to live in the urban area. I'm giving you the one example in the Noida city. Due to urbanization and due to development, what happens? 65 point something area, 65.02% area of the Noida city is converted to the impervious surfaces. So you can imagine if 65% area of any city converted to the impervious surfaces, so our water is not going to penetrate in the beneath the surface. That's why we are facing the serious problem of the groundwater resources in the urban area. And we are seeing the seasonal flood or seasonal flood in the urban area. This is another example of the land use, land cover change. Third example I am going to give you, Professor Jaglan is here and most of the participant is from the Haryana. So I did one study in the southern Haryana, it's a semi-arid area. 45% of the groundwater quality comes under the very poor and poor quality due to land use, land cover change, due to our faulty public policy. So there is a need to accommodate all these things in our public policy. If you are not going to accommodate, so we are going to face the serious problem in 21st century. So in these words, because I have did all these study in a very primary sources and scientifically studies all these things, that's why I'm sharing to the audience, to the geographers, please do the things, researches, focused way, so that your policy should be considered by the government. Professor Jaglan has already, in his lecture, has focused to the geographers. He contribute due to publication, good publication. If your publication is published in a very reputed journal, so government and other researchers will take notice of your research, and they are going to adopt whatever you are going to suggest. Professor Ashwani Luthra has already explained about the urbanization and urban building and everything, and he has cited different examples from Bangalore, Delhi, Ahmedabad. So that I think that will be also useful for the geographers, those who are working in the urban field. Professor Sarfaraz Alam has already explained about the socio-spatial exclusion and he has given focus on two things: preservation of the diversity and reduce disparity. Professor Dhotre has very nicely explained about the climate change and how climate change, increasing temperature, giving the problem of the heat stress in urban areas. So I think this is also a very good study, and this is good for the young geographers to consider all these things. Don't go only for the showing the temperature is increasing or rainfall is decreasing. So you go in the in-depth study, so the government or policymaker will consider your study. And Anuja Tiga has already given that nothing is meaningless and usage of the different indicators, and focus should be long-term perspective. So I hope that all the panelists did justice in their lectures, and young generation will consider all these suggestions or points given by my senior panelists. So in this brief word, I'm going to close this session because we are running the shortage of the time. And once again, I'm thankful to the organizer for giving me the opportunity to chair this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Department of Geography and Geographical Society of Himachal Pradesh, it is my proud privilege to extend vote of thanks to our distinguished panelists, eminent speakers, learned geographers joining us from different parts of the country. I thank each and everyone for your organic ideas and thought-provoking views. Friends, due to shortage of time, there is a slight modification in the program, and hopefully you will bear with the organizers. In fact, we are going to start the valedictory session. I can understand that you might be feeling hungry also, but kindly bear with the organizers for 1.5 hours. So I request all the eminent speakers to take their seat on the other side of the table. Now I invite Naina, Twinkle, and Sapna for further proceedings of the valedictory session.
Sir, sir, baat hai. So he'll join later on. बाद में आएंगे तो
कोई बात नहीं भी कर रहे
अच्छा लगता है
वो इधर देखो
क्योंकि
चीफ गेस्ट तो शुड नहीं चीफ गेस्ट शुड नॉट
एंड में बच्चों को देखो पढ़ाई नहीं होगी
क्या ये ऊपर
खूबसूरत सा एक पल किस्सा बन जाता है खूबसूरत सा एक पल किस्सा बन